Hey, Angel. I'll give everybody a minute to kind of settle in, but I'm not going to wait that long. This window's got me a little backlit, huh? Hey, everybody. So I'm going to be reading a book today, War is a Racket by Smedley Butler. So let me get over there. Thanks for sharing that out, Angel Gamer. I do appreciate it. Hey, Bill. It's kind of a anti establishment book, so maybe it will. So let's get started. Introduction. In War is a Racket, Butler points to a variety of examples, mostly from World War One, where industrialists whose operations were subsidized by public funding were able to generate substantial profits, essentially from mass human suffering. The work is divided into 5 chapters. 1. War is a racket. 2. Who makes the profits? 3. Who pays the bills? 4. How to smash this racket? And 5. To hell with war. It contains this key summary. War is a racket. It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and the losses in lives. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the very many. Out of war, a few make huge fortunes. Okay, Angel, let me testing, testing, testing. How about now? Okay, cool. So, in another often cited quote from the book, Butler says, I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service, and during that period, I spent most of the time as a high class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenue in. I helped the raping of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. I helped purify Nicaragua for the international banking house of Brown Brothers in 1902 to 1912. I brought light to the Republic for the American sugar interests in 1916. I helped make Honduras right for the American fruit companies in 1903. In China in 1927, I helped see to it that Standard Oil went on its way unmolested. Looking back at it, I might have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was to operate his racket in three districts. I operated on three continents. The book is also interesting and historically, as Butler points out in 1935, that the U.S. engaged in military war games in the Pacific that are bound to provoke the Japanese. Hey, Oklahoma. The Japanese, a proud people, of course, will be pleased beyond expression to see that the United States fleet so close to Nippon's shores, even as pleased as would be the residents of California were they to dimly discern through the morning mist the Japanese fleet playing at a war game off of Los Angeles. Butler explains that the excuse for the buildup of the U.S. fleet and the war games is fear that the great fleet and this supposed enemy will strike suddenly and annihilate 125 million people. In his 1987 biography of Butler, Maverick Marine, Hans Schmidt gave a brief review. Butler's particular contribution was his recantation, denouncing war on moral grounds after having been a warrior, hero, and spending most of his life as a military insider. The theme remained vigorously patriotic and nationalistic, decrying imperialism as a disgrace rooted in the greed of a privileged few. So a little bit about Butler real quick. He like he said, spent 33 years and a quarter um, in the Marine Corps. He was awarded two Medals of Honor and a Marine Brevet Medal, which is kind of falls in between a Service Cross and the Medal of Honor. Um, so in these days, it probably would have been a third Medal of Honor. Um, he The brevet medal has only been awarded 23 times. A lot of it during the Spanish American War and during the wars, obviously, that Butler was in. So when they say he's a warrior and a war hero, truly he was. Uh, but he came to realize what he was really fighting for. So, chapter one: War is a racket. War is a racket. It always has been. It is possibly the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which the profits are reckoned in dollars and losses in lives. A racket is best described, I believe, as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it is about. It is conducted for the benefit of the very few at the very expense of the very many. Out of war, a few people make huge fortunes. In the World War, he they bracketed in one, but remember this was pre World War II. So, in the World War, a mere handful garnered profits of the conflict. At least 21,000 new millionaires and billionaires were made in the United States during the World War. That many admitted their huge blood gains in their income tax returns. How many other war millionaires falsified their tax returns? No one knows. How many of these war millionaires shouldered a rifle? How many of them dug a trench? How many of them knew what it meant to go hungry in a rat infested dugout? How many of them spent sleepless, frightened nights ducking shells and shrapnel and machine gun bullets? How many of them parried a bayonet thrust of an enemy? How many of them were wounded or killed in battle? Out of war, nations acquire additional territory. If they are victorious, they just take it. This newly acquired territory promptly is exploited by the few, the self-same few who wrung dollars out of blood in the war. The general public shoulders the bill. And what is the bill? This bill renders a horrible accounting. Newly placed gravestones, mangled bodies, shattered minds, broken hearts and homes, economic instability, depression, and all its attendant miseries, backbreaking taxation for generations and generations. For a great many, as a soldier, I had a suspicion that war was a racket. Not until I retired to civil life did I fully realize it. Now that I see the international war clouds gathering as they are today, I must face it and speak out. Again, they are choosing sides. France and Russia met and agreed to stand side by side. Italy and Austria hurried to make similar agreement. Poland and Germany cast sheep's eyes at each other, forgetting the nonce one unique occasion. That's good because I didn't know what a nonce was. Their dispute over the Polish corridor, the assassination of King Alexander of Yugoslavia complicated matters. Yugoslavia and Hungary, long bitter enemies, were almost at each other's throats. Italy was ready to jump in, but France was waiting. So was Czechoslovakia. All of them are looking ahead to war. Not the people, not those who fight and pay and die, only those who foment wars and remain safely at home to profit. There are 40 million men under arms in the world today, and our statesmen and diplomats have the territory to say that war is not in the making. Hell's bells, are these 40 million men not being trained to be dancers? Not in Italy, to be sure. Premier Mussolini knows what they are being trained for. He at least is frank enough to speak out. Only the other day, Il Duce, in International Conciliation, the publication of the Carnegie Endowment for the International Peace, said, and above all, fascism, the more it considers and observes the future and the development of humanity quite apart from political considerations of the moment, believes neither in the possibility nor in the utility of perpetual peace. War alone brings up to its highest tension all human energy and puts the stamp of nobility upon the people who have the courage to meet it. Undoubtedly, Mussolini means exactly what he says. His well-trained army, his great fleet of planes, and even his navy are ready for war, anxious for it, apparently. His recent stand at the side of Hungary in the latter's disputes with Yugoslavia showed that. And the hurried mobilization of his troops on the Austrian border after the assassination of Dollfuss showed it too. There are others in Europe whose saber rattling presages war sooner or later. Herr Hitler, with his rearming Germany and his constant demands for more and more arms, is an equal, if not greater, menace to peace. France only recently increased the term of military service for its youth from a year to 18 months. Yes, all over nations are camping in their arms. The mad dogs of Europe are on the loose. In the Orient, the maneuvering is more adroit. Back in 1904, when Russia and Japan fought, we kicked out our old friends, the Russians, and backed Japan. Then our very generous international bankers were financing Japan. Now the trend is to poison us against the Japanese. What does the open door policy to China mean to us? Our trade with China is about $90 million a year. Or the Philippine Islands. We have spent about 600 million in the Philippines in 35 years, and we, our bankers and industrialists and speculators, have private investments there of less than 200 million. Then to save that China trade of about 90 million, or to protect these private investments of less than $200 million in the Philippines, we would be all stirred up to hate Japan and go to war. A war that might well cost us tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of lives of Americans, and many more hundreds of thousands of physically maimed and mentally unbalanced men. Of course, for this loss, there would be compensating profit. Fortunes would be made. Millions and billions of dollars would be piled up by a few. Munitions makers, bankers, shipbuilders, manufacturers, meat packers, speculators, they would all fare well. Yes, they are getting ready for another war. Why shouldn't they? It pays high dividends. But what does it profit the men who are killed? What does it profit their mothers and sisters, their wives and their sweethearts? What does it profit their children? What does it profit anyone except the very few to whom war means huge profits? Yes, what does it profit the nation? Take our own case. Until 1898, we didn't own a bit of territory outside the mainland of North America. At that time, our national debt was a little more than $1 trillion. Then we became internationally minded. We forgot or shunted aside the advice of the father of our country. We forgot George Washington's warning about the entangling alliances, and we went to war. We acquired outside territory. At the end of the World War period, as a direct result of our fiddling in international affairs, our national debt had jumped to over $25 trillion. Our favorable trade balance during the 25-year period was about 24 trillion. Therefore, on a purely bookkeeping basis, we ran a little behind year for year. And that foreign trade might well have been ours without the wars. Sorry for the dead air. It would have been far cheaper, not to say safer, for the average American who pays the bills to stay out of foreign entanglements. For a very few, this racket, like bootlegging and other underworld rackets, bring fancy profits, but the cost of operations is always transferred to the people who do not profit. Chapter 2: Who makes the profits? The World War, rather our brief participation in it, has cost the United States some $52 trillion. Figure it out. That means $400 to every American man, woman, and child. And We haven't paid the debt yet. We are paying our children will pay it, and our children's children probably still will be paying the cost of that war. 52 billion, sorry. I counted my zeros wrong. The normal profits of a business concern in the United States are 6, 8, 10, and sometimes 12%. But wartime profits, that is another matter. 26, 100, 300, and even 1,800%. The sky is the limit. All that traffic will bear. Uncle Sam has the money. Let's get it. Of course, it isn't put that crudely in wartime. It is dressed in the speeches about patriotism, love of country, and we must all put our shoulders to the wheel. But the profits jump and leap and skyrocket and are safely pocketed. Let's take a few examples. Take our friends, the DuPonts, the powder people. Don't one of them test Didn't one of them testify before the Senate committee recently that their powder won the war or saved the world for democracy or something? How did they do in the war? They were a patriotic corporation. Well, the average earnings of the DuPonts for the period of 1910 to 1914 were $6 million a year. It wasn't much. Hey, Muck. But the DuPonts managed to get along on it. Now let's look at their average yearly profit during the war years, 1914 to 18. $58 million a year profit, we find, nearly 10 times that of the normal times. And the profits of normal times were pretty good, an increase in profits of more than 950%. This was World War One. Imagine what it is today. Take one of our little steel companies that patriotically shunted aside the making of rails and girders and bridges to manufacture war materials. Well, their 1910 to 1914 yearly earnings averaged $6 million as well. Then came the war, and like loyal citizens, Bethlehem Steel promptly turned to munitions making. Did their profits jump, or did they let Uncle Sam in for a bargain? Well, for 1914 to 1918, the average was $49 million a year. Or let's take United States Steel. The normal earnings during the 5-year period for the war were $105 million a year. Not bad. Then along came the war, and went the profits. The average yearly profit for the period for 1914 to 1918 was $240 million. Not bad. There you have some of the steel and powder earnings. Let's look at something else. A little copper, perhaps. That always does well in war times. Anaconda, for instance, averaged the yearly earnings pre-war years, 1910 to 1914, of $10 million. During the 1914 to 18 profits leaped to $34 million per year. Or Utah copper, average of $5 million per year during the 1910 to 1914 period, jumped to an average of $21 million yearly profits for the war period. Let's group these fives with three smaller companies. The total yearly average profit pre-war from 1910 to 1914. Thank you, Muck. Thank you. Were 137,480,000. Then along came the war. The average yearly profits for this group skyrocketed to 408,300,000. A little increase in profits of approximately 200%. Does war pay? It paid them. But they aren't the only ones. There are still others. Let's take leather. For the 3 year period before the war, the total profits of Central Leather Company was $3,500,000. That was approximately $1,167,000 a year. Well, in 1916, Central Leather returned a profit of $15 million, a small increase of 1,100%. That's all. Thank you, Muck, again. See if it goes out. Let's see. The General Chemical Company averaged a profit for the 3 years before the war of a little over $800,000 a year. Came the war and the profits jumped to 12 million, a leap of 1,400%. International Nickel Company, you can't have a war without nickel, showed an increase in profits of a mere average of $4 million a year to $73 million yearly. Not bad. An increase of more than 1,700%. American Sugar Refining Company averaged $2 million a year. In 1916, a profit of $6 million was recorded. So they only jumped 300%. Just made them beggars. Listen to the Senate document number 259. The 65th Congress reporting on corporate earnings and government revenues, considering the profits of 122 meat packers, 153 cotton manufacturers, 299 garment makers, 49 steel plants, and 340 coal producers during the war, profits under 25% were exceptional. For instance, the coal companies made between 100% and 7,856% on their capital stock during the war. The Chicago Packers doubled and tripled their earnings. And let us not forget the bankers who financed the Great War. If anyone had the cream of the profits, it was the bankers. Being partnerships rather than incorporated organizations, they do not have to report to stockholders, and their profits were. What's up, Hefe? Let's see, where was I? And their profits were as secret as were immense. How the bankers made their millions and their billions, I do not know, because those little secrets never become public. Even before the Senate investigatory body. But here's how some of the other patriotic industrialists and speculators chiseled their way into war profits. Take the shoe people. They like war. It brings business with abnormal profits. They made huge profits on the sales to our allies. Perhaps, like the munitions manufacturers and armament makers, they also sold to the enemy. For a dollar is a dollar, whether it comes from Germany or from France. But they did well by Uncle Sam, too. For instance, they sold Uncle Sam 35 million pairs of hobnailed service shoes. There were 4 million soldiers, 8 pairs and more to a soldier. My regiment during the war had only 1 pair to a soldier. Some of these shoes probably are still in existence. They were good shoes. But when the war was over, Uncle Sam has a matter of 25 million pairs left over, bought and paid for, profits recorded and pocketed. There was still lots of leather left, so the leather people sold your Uncle Sam hundreds of thousands of McClellan saddles for the cavalry. But there wasn't any American cavalry overseas. Somebody had to get rid of this leather. However, somebody had to make a profit in it. So we had a lot of McClellan saddles, and we probably have those yet. Also, somebody had a lot of mosquito netting. They sold your Uncle Sam 20 million mosquito nets for the use of soldiers overseas. I suppose the boys expected to put it over them as they tried to sleep in muddy trenches, one hand scratching cooties on their back and the others making passes at scurrying rats. Well, not one of these mosquito nets ever got to France. Anyhow, these thoughtful manufacturers wanted to make sure that no soldier would be without his mosquito net. So 40 million additional yards of mosquito netting were sold to Uncle Sam. We were probably still using them, using the same mosquito netting that they made in World War One, evidently. They were pretty good profits in mosquito netting in those days, even if there were no mosquitoes in France. I suppose that if the war had lasted just a little longer, the enterprising mosquito netting manufacturers would have sold your Uncle Sam a couple of consignment mosquitoes to plant in France so that more mosquitoes netting would be in order. Hey, Double M's, I just put it up real quick. I uh I had time. So airplane and engine manufacturers felt they too should get their just profits out of the war. Why not? Everybody else was getting theirs. So 1 mil, oh no, that's 1 billion. Count them if you live long enough, was spent by Uncle Sam in building airplane engines that never left the ground. Not one plane or motor out of the $1 billion worth ordered ever got into a battle in France. Just the same manufacturers made their little profit of 30, 100, and perhaps 300%. Undershirts for soldiers cost 14 cents to make, and Uncle Sam paid 30 to 40 cents each for them. Good grief. A t shirt for 14 cents? Heck yeah. A nice little profit for the undershirt manufacturer. And the stocking manufacturers and uniform manufacturers and cap manufacturers and the steel helmet manufacturers all got theirs. Why, when war was over, some 4 million sets of equipment, knapsacks, and the things that go to fill them crammed warehouses on this side. Now they are being scrapped because the regulations have changed the contents. But the manufacturers collected their wartime profits on them, and they will do it all over again the next time. There were lots of brilliant ideas for profit making during the war. One very versatile patriot sold Uncle Sam 12 dozen 48-inch wrenches. Oh, they were very nice wrenches. The only trouble was there was only one nut ever made that was large enough for these wrenches. That is the one that holds the turbines at Niagara Falls. Well, after Uncle Sam had bought them and the manufacturer had pocketed the profit, the wrenches were put on freight cars and shunted all around the United States in an effort to find a use for them. When the armistice was signed, it was indeed a sad blow to the wrench manufacturer. He was just about to make some nuts to fit the wrenches. Then he planned to sell all those too to your Uncle Sam. Still, another had a brilliant idea that colonels shouldn't ride in automobiles, nor should they even ride on horseback. One has probably seen a picture of Andy Jackson riding a buckboard. Well, some 6,000 buckboards were sold to Uncle Sam for the use of colonels. Not one of them was used, but the buckboard manufacturer got his war profits. I don't even know what a buckboard is. I was going to look it up, but the shipbuilders felt they should come in on some of it too. They built a lot of ships and made a lot of profit. It's just a carriage. Okay. They built a lot of ships and made a lot of profit, more than $3 billion worth. Some of the ships were all right, but 635 million worth of them were made of wood and wouldn't float. That the seams opened up and they sank. We paid for them though, and somebody pocketed the profits. It has been estimated by statisticians and economists and researchers that the war cost your Uncle Sam $52 billion. Of the sum, 39 billion was expended in the actual war itself. This expenditure yielded 16 billion in profits. That is how the 21,000 billionaires and millionaires got that way. The 16 billion in profits is not to be sneezed at. It's a little tidy sum. It's quite a tidy sum, and it went to a very few. The Senate or Nye Committee probe of munitions industries and its wartime profits, despite its sensational disclosures, hardly has scratched the surface. Even so, it has had some effect. The State Department has been studying for some time methods of keeping out of war. The War Department suddenly decided that it was a wonderful plan to spring. The administration names a committee with the War and Navy departments, ably represented under the chairmanship of a Wall Street speculator, to limit profits in wartime. To what extent isn't suggested? Hmm. Possibly profits of 300 and 600 and 1600% of those who turned blood into gold in the World War would be limited to some smaller figure. Apparently, however, the plan does not call for any limitation of losses that that is the losses of those who fight in a war. Yes, exactly, Jeff. Almost like the trillions the contractors received. So, as far as I have been able to ascertain, there is nothing in the scheme to limit a soldier to the loss of but one eye or one arm, or to limit his wounds to one or two or three, or to limit the loss of life. There is nothing in this scheme, apparently, that says not more than 12% of that regiment shall be wounded in battle, or that not more than 7% in a division shall be killed. Of course, the committee cannot be bothered with such trifling matters. Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right, Mrs. Metcalf. That's what um, that's what he was so upset about. He took part in the Banana Republic and everything, the real Banana Republic. Uh, let me, because I'm going to stop on chapter 3. Let me do this. I got to get my setup fixed up. I've lost everything on StreamYards for some reason. I want to look up. Let's see. I want to share this. Just gonna. So Smedley Darlington Butler was an American Major General in the United States Marine Corps. During his 34 year, 33 and a quarter year military career, he fought in the Philippine American War, the Boxer Rebellion, Mexican Revolution, World War One, and the Banana Wars. So you see the corporate wars he participated in. Um, but he was also they wanted him to participate in the business business plot and overthrow Franklin Roosevelt, but he became a whistleblower for that. Yep, he was thoroughly disgusted having been voluntold. I mean, if anybody, the brevet medal and two medals of honor, uh, you get to complain about the things you were. I mean, it's not like me and Jeff don't complain about the things we were voluntold to do too, as well. So, anywho, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm glad you all stopped by. Um, and I will try to finish this up tomorrow. I have a shorter day tomorrow too. So I hope to see y'all and more here tomorrow. And I'm sure I'll see y'all tonight. According to what the boss has on tap. Okay. All right, Mrs. Metcalf. I will give you more notice.